Hey everybody, welcome to Garden Time with Belle. Well, do you have a garden bed that looks pretty good, but it's sort of missing that wow factor? Well, today I am going to take you with me as I transform this established garden bed, and I'm going to take it from fine to fantastic. And the way I'm going to do that today is I am going to be planting some of my all-time favorite proven winners annuals so that I load it up with these gorgeous colorful flowers that will be blooming their heads off all summer long. Well, per usual, it is a super windy day here in my mid-Missouri Zone 6 garden. Oh my gosh, we had a couple of days with no wind and now it is back with a vengeance. So I sure hope you all will be able to hear me today. I got my little mic on with the fuzzy thing, so it's supposed to cut down on wind, but I don't know. It may be a rough way to go today in these conditions, but regardless, it is go time in my garden. So those of you that follow my channel, you know that I have a greenhouse on my property and it is currently filled with so many plants that need to get in the ground for this new season. So that's the very first thing we're going to do. I'm going to jump on my little scooter. I've got my sled. I'm on 10 acres. So this is how I zip around the property when I'm doing gardening projects. And it is fantastic. Use it almost every single day. So yeah, let's head down to the greenhouse and I'm going to show you which of my favorite proven winner annuals are going to go in this front sunny border. Yeah, so that's all we got to do. Got to go get the plants, don't we? So before I head down there and show you which plants I've selected for this location, I'm going to invite everybody out there to please like and subscribe to my channel. Doing that helps me grow my channel, helps me meet more great gardeners just like you. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much for being here again and coming along on another garden adventure with Belle. So time to get down to the greenhouse. So I've got my plants out of the greenhouse. I'm going to pull them up here on the front porch because I want to talk to you about the plants. And if we get out of the wind, I think you'll be able to hear me a little bit better. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to tell you about some of the other supplies that we're going to need for today's garden project. So before I show you what plants are going to go in today, I thought it might be fun if I just kind of oriented everybody to where I'm going to be working today. And this is the front of our house, obviously. There's our front door. And it has these garden beds that just snug up to the house all the way down. I recently planted out this space with, let's see, Bobo hydrangeas and the Pugster blue butterfly bush. So that was a recent new addition. I pulled out a bunch of old scraggly spirea and popped these beautiful shrubs in. And again, they're baby shrubs, but it's going to bring a beautiful color and flower power to the space. So all right, this is the side of our house that faces west. So things that I plant in this area generally need to be able to take a lot of sun because we get super hot here in mid-Missouri in the summertime. And so, you know, west facing gets pounded by sun. So that's what I have to consider for this particular bed. And so what's already here, of course, is we've got a lot of pretty evergreens. I've got an oh so easy Italian ice rose here. I have two beautiful thuyas or arborvitaes that flank the window here, and let me come in here real close. This is a new addition. I actually have to plant it today. This is a pufferfish hydrangea, and I'll tell you more about it when we get ready to plant it. It replaced one of my new David Austin roses that I planted just last year, Sceptered Isle. I came out of here about 2 weeks ago, everybody, and my rose succumbed to rose rosette disease. I will put a picture on the screen to show you what it looked like. I nearly cried. I've never had rose rosette disease, but it is super, super common. I'm finding out from gardeners in my area of the country. Over here, I also planted up a new reminiscent yellow, Proven Winners big shrub rose. Well, it's not big now. It's pretty little, in fact, but yeah, it's got some buds on it. We have a lovely Leonard Messel magnolia tree. It springs. It flowers in the spring, and then it's just a darling tree the rest of the year. So this is the space that I'm going to be planting up. And yes, you see my flags. I am precise when I plant, especially when I'm planting things that I really need to pay attention to their mature size. So they're there for a reason. I've already mapped it out, so I know exactly where to drill my holes for these annuals. And I have 2 more Supertunias. That one's going to go, I think I have 3 that are going to go down here. I got some Gertrude Jekyll climbing roses and a beautiful clematis. So I'm going to be putting those down there. But let's get here on the porch out of the wind and let me show you what annuals I've chosen for this space. Yes, get out of the wind a little bit. Okay. Let me start with the new hydrangea that's going to go in where my old rose was that I had to pull out and get rid of. If you have rose rosette disease, there is no cure. I won't go into a lot of details. You can look that up later, but it's carried by microscopic mites through the air. And if it lands on one of your roses, game over. I dug the rose out. We took the roots out, the entire plant. It did not go in the compost pile. It did not just go somewhere else on the property. It was put in the trash and sent off. So you don't want that infecting all your other roses, and it only affects roses. So I guess that's a blessing. I don't know, but okay. So in its place, I have selected pufferfish panicle hydrangea. You know I love hydrangeas. I now have, let's see, this will be my 4th variety of panicle. Those of you that watch my videos know how much I love panicle hydrangeas. They are just workhorses in the garden. They are gorgeous. They're very low maintenance. I have Limelight Punch. I have Limelight Prime. And I have the new Bobo dwarf hydrangeas around the corner. And pufferfish is my latest and greatest. So let me give you the specs. Pufferfish needs 6+ hours of sun. Perfect. We're facing west, full sun. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. I'm a 6B. Right there. Let's see, size-wise, it says it'll get a 3 to 5 foot tall and 3 to 5 foot wide. It will fit beautifully between my arborvitaes. So that is something I'm super excited about, and I feel confident that it'll like this spot in my garden. So that's going to be the centerpiece between the arbs. And it pretty much stays white most of the year, but it does get some soft shades of pink in the fall, it says. So, all right, so that's my pufferfish. So let's talk about annuals, because that's really what I want to encourage you all to amp up and level up your garden space for flower power by popping in annuals, which is always so fun to do. And so in terms of the annuals I've chosen, I've only chosen 3 different types. This one I have never grown, but it gets absolute rave reviews. And I have selected the Rockin' Play in the Blues Salvia. It is supposed to be enormous, and it's supposed to pump out gorgeous blue flowers all season long. All right, here are the specs. Full to part sun. It gets 24 to 48 inches tall. It can get big if it likes where it's planted. It's hardy in zones 7A to 10B. I'm going to leave it in the ground at the end of the year, but I have no expectations it's going to come back like a perennial because, again, This is west and southwest facing. We get massive winds, and I don't think it would survive our cold winters, but I'm going to leave it in the ground just in case. So I've got 4 of these that'll go in the garden, and then Supertunia Vista petunias. You could probably consider me a super fan of the Supertunia petunia line from Proven Winners. I can't tell more people about this. If you have not yet heard about these amazing petunias, I'll leave a link in the description below for you all to look it up. I have grown this one before in baskets. In fact, I'm going to put a picture on the screen. It's been probably 2 or 3 years ago that I grew one of these in, I think my hanging baskets were maybe 9 or 10 inches wide, 1 in each. They got enormous. They are a gorgeous, I don't know how to describe the color except that I feel like it's sort of an iridescent fuchsia. So talk about popping in the landscape and in baskets. They are just spectacular. So I've got 3 of those. So specs, again, full sun, gets 12 to 24 inches. It mounds and spreads. When I had these in my landscape, they got about 3 foot wide in diameter. So one plant in the ground can expand this much in a hanging basket, just like you saw in the pictures. It will come up, it'll mound, and it will fall down. No deadheading required. These are not your grandma's petunias. Nothing. I mean, it's just phenomenal, and it will be full of blooms all season long. The last of the annuals, and I have 7 of these going in, is the Supertunia Mini Vista Yellow. You see that? This is sort of, I'm discovering, I hope it changes color a little bit, but this isn't a buttery yellow like the Saffron Finch Supertunias. This kind of looks a little bit more limey yellow. But again, they've been in these little cans for quite a while. So a lot of times once you get them in the ground and in real natural sun, they change color. So the tag doesn't look very limey yellow at all. It looks more bright yellow. Okay, let's see here. The specs. It gets 6 to 12 inches tall, and it maxes out, it says, at about 18 inches wide. But again, I've seen a lot of folks grow this, and they say it gets bigger than that in the ground. So again, it's a Vista series, but it's a mini Vista, which means it will be covered in these yellow flowers, but the flowers are much smaller than, let me get the Paradise version, then, I don't know if you guys can see that, the Paradise or the regular Vista series. So yeah, I wanted to infuse a lot more yellow. It's something I don't have a lot of in my garden. So I was just determined this year, I'm like, you're going to sprinkle yellow throughout the west facing garden this year. And I think these are going to do it. All right, this is what we're going to need for today's project. I've got my kneeling pad, I've got my auger for drilling out the holes, I've got some slow release fertilizer for the annuals. I'll use the Proven Winners brand. It really does great to push the flowers out, as well as a biotone. The biotone's only going to be for the pufferfish hydrangea. And then you see my little Dollar Tree finds here. A lot of you know about this trick. So today I'm going to actually use these little waste baskets to cover up my annuals just to get them established, because I have been spying over here on the edge of our property. So you see where these trees are all along the edge? There is a big bunny colony in there. And I've had a few rabbits coming up to our little rock garden here. And I don't want to take any chances that they are going to think it's going to be fun to nibble on some of my Supertunias in the ground. I didn't have that happen last year, and I did have some Supertunias out here, but I don't want to take any chances. So sometimes when a plant is young and new and super tender, the bunnies might come in and try to munch on them. So I want to give them as much protection as I can. So all I got to do is dig the holes, get some fertilizer in the holes, get those plants in the holes, jig my drip. So I've got plenty of drip irrigation. You can see some of the tubing out here. So I'll try to position the drip strategically near all of the annuals and of course my pufferfish. And then I'll need to mulch to make it look pretty. And that'll be that. So I cannot wait to take this garden bed from fine to fantastic. So better get started. Okay, time for an update, everybody. Well, best laid plans can go awry. That's part of gardening, so I had to pivot. I tried to use my auger, and I did not realize that some of the holes that I wanted to dig were so packed with our mid-Missouri clay that I couldn't use the auger, so I switched over to my shovel. And I didn't think you all needed to see all of that digging with the shovel. Oh my goodness, I'm a little concerned. I'm gonna go get some of my raised bed mix that we had left over from our veggie garden renovation and bring it here to mix in with some of the native soil and back into the holes as I pop these annuals in. I am not concerned at all about how well my pufferfish hydrangea will do, because hydrangeas do amazing in clay soil. They do just great. And I did have annuals, not as many as I have this year, but I did have annuals, Supertunia petunias, in the front of this border last year, and they were fine. But whoa, I guess I am drilling or digging more holes this year than last year, and whoo, doggies. So fingers crossed that this is gonna work. You know, we gardeners have to be flexible, don't we? Some days in the garden are full of surprises, and today was one of those days. As you know, I ran into a lot of heavy clay. I thought that there was more soft, looser soil, especially in the front of this particular bed, because last year I did plant some annuals in the front. The other thing that I hadn't shared with you all is when we had this rejig 3 or 4 years ago, it was only shrubs, and there was really intention at that time to put in annuals and swap perennials out and that kind of thing. So they put landscape fabric down, and if you have ever removed landscape fabric, whoo, doggies, it is not the faint of heart. And so there were a couple of holes that even with the shovel I ran into landscape fabric, so I had to get my box cutter out, remove, so I could dig. Okay, so that's what I did so far to solve the problem. And then one other thing before I amend the soil with some compost, I went over and got some over by the shed. So anyways, before I do that, I do want to talk about when you're planting in heavy clay, especially things like annuals. In a perfect world, I would continue to amend this bed, which I just started last year, and by adding compost every year to the top, right? And eventually it'll work in the soil, but it takes a while to get there. So I'm going to be doing the same thing again this year. I had to go get more compost, and I'm going to be amending that bed. If you just dig down into solid clay and you don't amend it with anything else as you're planting, your plants can sometimes drown, right? If you have kind of a cylinder drilled down in this heavy clay and you don't have any other kind of organic matter, it can hold a lot of water and your roots will rot and therefore your plant will rot. So fingers crossed that is not going to happen, because again, there is some decent soil, but when you get down deep enough, and these little quart containers, you know, they're fairly deep. So about right here is where I started hitting the heavy clay in the soil. So you're going to see me, before I put fertilizer in, I'm going to amend the holes with some of that beautiful compost, and eventually over time, I'm hoping that it's going to work out. So next step will be fertilizing each hole that I've dug. And then when I get down to actually put the plants in the ground, I will be adding in with the clay some of that beautiful compost and the native soil, and hope that it's going to work. All right, last but not least is my new pufferfish panicle hydrangea, and I do know that I'm going to need some compost to fill it around the edges. So let's see what we've got here. Oh yeah. Awesome, awesome. So the right depth for sure. So let's see, I think I might want to position it maybe about right there. And the soil under this is really in great shape under the hydrangea because I've had a rose there, and prior to having the rose there, I had, oh gosh, a shrub. And so it got fed every year and got lots of amendments, so it's in pretty good shape. It wasn't a sticky, thick clay mess like the little holes were in some of them. So I'll just pack this in around the edges. All right, I finally got everything in the ground, despite a few little bumps along the way and having to hand dig, which is not my favorite thing to do, but you know what? I am a determined person, so I got it done. Let me show you again where everything ended up. So of course, my new pufferfish panicle hydrangea, again, it gets 3 to 5 tall and wide. It will fill in the space over time, but it is a shrub. So first year it'll sleep, next year it'll creep, and hopefully in the third year it will leap and get gorgeous and huge. Okay. In front of the arborvitaes are the 4 Rockin playing the blues salvia. Remember, these get really big for an annual. They'll get anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5 foot tall and at least a couple of feet wide. So we'll have a beautiful backdrop of this gorgeous blue. And then in the center here, I placed the Supertunia Vista Paradise, this super beautiful hot pink iridescent. Again, Supertunia Vistas get 3 foot in diameter in the landscape. They will fill this whole front edge in. And then I put 2 mini Vista yellows over here and 2 more over here. So I think the blue, the hot pink, and the yellow will really amp this place up. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with me today as I got to work in this front garden. I am hoping, like I said earlier, that with the addition of those gorgeous proven winter annuals, I will take this space from just a fine looking space to a fabulous looking space. I have about 4 things yet to do before I completely finish this bed, and then rather than making you guys hang out with me and watch, I need to water everything in, settle that soil around the root balls. I need to reset the drip irrigation around each of the plants to make sure they get what they need this summer. Let's see, after that, I'm going to go ahead and put those little rabbit cages back on the annuals, and I think I'll leave them on maybe for a couple of weeks. And then, of course, I need to mulch with some fresh mulch and make it just look pretty. So you know that I will be taking you along and giving you a progress report. Fingers crossed, it's going to be fabulous. So until next time, I wish everybody out there happy gardening.